So here's a fun fact about birthdays. Somewhere along the way, they stopped being a celebration and turned into a deadline. You wake up, you're a year older, and before you've even had coffee, there's this little voice going, okay, let's see those numbers. Where's the job? Where's the relationship? Where's the house? The savings, the body, the friend group that's supposed to throw you a surprise party. Let's compare it to where you said you would be, and let's compare it to where you are now. And I know this because I do it. Every single year, I measure my entire worth against the number I'm turning. I turn the day into a performance review nobody scheduled. I pull up everyone else's life like it's evidence in a case against me, and I'm sitting there going, I am behind. I'm so behind. But here's the thing I finally realized there is no schedule. There is no supposed to. You made up the timeline, and then you forgot that you made it up. So now you're failing a test you wrote for yourself with zero information about who you'd actually become. So today, on my birthday, we're not doing reflection, we're doing some demolition. You're listening to How to Live with Care. This is the show about becoming who you're trying to be without pretending the process is clean. June 17th, when this podcast is released, is in fact my birthday. I am turning 24 today, which feels so unreal. I still feel like I'm 16, 17 years old sometimes. And since it's my birthday, that means instead of reflecting, I'm going to take something apart. I'm going to take apart that made up schedule every single one of us is failing against. So let's get into it. I made a joke to my boyfriend a few days ago on how my life feels like a sitcom whenever it comes to this podcast because I don't like to plan too far in advance of what I talk about, but I kind of have like a rough guideline of the things that I really want to research and get into. But it always seems like every single week, whatever I'm talking about, the theme of the podcast is, that also happens to be the thing that I am struggling with the most in my personal life. Life has such a funny way of working out like that. But I was just talking to him the other day on how I feel like I have to keep a tally on myself, all the good, all the bad, every single day. And I have to do a reflection every single day because I'm just so scared that I'm going to be acting a specific way or leading myself down a specific path that by the time I get there, a place that I don't want to be, it's going to be too late. I'm constantly criticizing myself and putting myself in check and just really making sure I am on the right path for myself. And within all of this and reading back on my journal and reflecting on the way that I've been talking to myself and thinking about myself, and especially with my birthday coming up, because the birthday is the annual audit. Every single year. I'm 24 years old now, so it's like I have to go look at every other 24-year-old in the world and see what they're doing and then compare myself to them. And it just gives me another excuse to criticize myself in a mean way. And I realize that I and a lot of other people, we have this secret list in our head that's constantly running, and it's the by now I should have blank list. By now I should have steady income. By now I should have a home where I want to lay my roots down. By now I should have the body that I probably would have now if I didn't have a hip injury, which makes it even more frustrating for me personally. But the list just goes on and on and on. I wish that I had more success in my career, but I can say that I did get the guy, so that is a win. And I'll have to share my Hallmark love story someday with you guys because it is a doozy. But I am constantly having a list in the back of my head of where I think I should be and comparing it to where I am now. And I realized at some point in my life, I wrote these deadlines for myself, which is funny because a few points in my life, I genuinely did not think that I would make it this far, which is why every year is and should be a celebration. And while I was thinking about this, I realized that writing this deadline, it makes me think about the way that I used to draw pictures. I'm letting you guys in on a little secret hobby that I have that I am somewhat good at. I don't want to toot my own horn. I'm not the best, but I'm also not the worst. But I love to draw. I have drawn my entire life. It's just a way for me to let off steam. And what started as cartoons like My Little Pony, Disney princesses, it quickly turned to realistic portraits. One of the hardest things to draw. Why? Because I felt like I should magically be able to do it. I should be able to look up a girl's face on Google Images and be able to completely replicate it in a sketch pad with a pencil that I have. And I always think that that's funny because that's just kind of the person that I am. But for years, my drawings, they just came out messy. They were always off. There was something about it. And when you're trying to draw a face, there's not a whole lot of room for error here. It either looks like a human face or it doesn't. And I would get to the point where I would rip the page out, I would crumple it. It was like a scene in a play where I would just cry and cry. And I am a crybaby, but I am especially a crybaby when I'm trying to complete something I think I should be able to do, and I can't. And I could not figure out why. Why was it not working? Why was it looking horrible? And honestly, now, looking back on some of them, they were never even that bad to begin with. But I get my drawing skills from my dad, and it's also one of his not so secret talents now. Sorry, Dad. And over the years, he kept telling me the same thing. Karen, you have to use a soft hand. Soft lines, soft grid lines. The lines that you put on the paper have to be light enough to erase, light enough to guide you 3-4 steps down the line and still be able to move them whenever you need to. Because for me, I would take a picture and instead of trying to gradually build my way up, I would slam that pencil straight into the paper and make the darkest lines possible because I wanted it to be right. I wanted it to be perfect on the first try. And when I took my dad's advice, the drawing actually came alive. I was able to build on top of a foundation from the lightest highlights to the darkest shadows, but it still hurt every time I did it that way. And I never understood why. And it didn't hurt just because I am a very impatient person, but it hurt because I didn't want to use a soft hand. I wanted every line to be perfect the first time that I put it onto the paper. I wanted it cemented into the paper, no eraser, no second guess. But I also didn't want to try and make my mistakes work either. It had to be perfect. And one day it clicked that I wasn't just drawing like that, I was living like that. Every line of my life pressed in so hard the first time that I could not move it later. But here's the thing about a portrait. The grid lines were never the drawing. They were simply guides, light marks to orient by, meant to be erased as that real face starts to show up gradually. You don't get a face by pressing one line in perfectly. You get it in layers, soft pass after soft pass, correcting as you go. The image just simply arriving because of the erasing, not in spite of it. And that I need it by now list, that was never the portrait. That was the grid lines, drawn in pencil by someone who couldn't even see the face yet. The mistake was never drawing the grid lines. The mistake was pressing in so hard that I forgot I was allowed to use an eraser. So I always remind myself, soften the hand. I still press too hard into the paper sometimes. Literally, I'm talking about drawing here. But now I remind myself to lighten my hand and I try again. But before we start blaming ourselves here and you start applying that to different areas of your life and falling down that spiral of shame, I want to zoom out and I want to question why we even do this in the first place. Because I love asking why. And it's so fascinating thinking about how time, the location in the world we're born into, completely shapes our lives in ways that we don't truly recognize. And because of the exact time and place we are born and we are raised, we are given that timeline. We didn't invent it, we absorbed it. It used to be just the movies, every story wrapping up that second she gets the guy in the house, and the rest of her life is just credits. And honestly, that is one of my biggest beefs when it comes to rom-coms or movies like that. It's like once she actually gets the guy or once the main character actually gets what she wants, we never even see what that looks like. Nothing. It's just a fairy tale. We only see all of the parts leading up to it and then boom, it's like her life is completely solved now that she found a man. But now we don't just have these movies. We don't just have these books. It's worse because now it's real people. We have reality TV handing us a checklist of what life is supposed to look like. You're supposed to graduate, go to college, get married, have a house, have kids, have a ton of money. And then it's your feed showing you someone your exact age, born in the same year as you, 2 steps ahead, checking the boxes in real time while you were watching. And that's the part that actually stings. It's not a character in a movie anymore. It's a real girl your age, and she's winning a race that you didn't even know you entered. I am a person that has always held myself to a high standard, and it's driven by my perfectionism. And I thought I'd be so much further ahead by now, which is honestly a wild thing to say out loud because I have lived a life full of love and blessings that a lot of people will never get. But the clock doesn't care about that. The clock just wants its boxes checked. Or at least that's what I thought. And this right here was my turning point. I had just finished my bachelor's early, and I just left a toxic relationship from the help of my parents, thank God. And I lived alone for the first time in my life in a new city. And it lasted for a whole year before I realized living in Tampa, Florida was not as easy as the movies and TV shows made it seem, or all these influencers. Even working full time, it could never work long term. And after my lease was up, I accepted defeat against the world. I accepted defeat against my plan that I made for myself and moved back in with my parents. I'd lived alone. I'd had my own place, my own freedom, and I moved back home at 22 years old. And I was convinced that I was the biggest failure alive. Like, I'd missed some deadline. Like, everyone else my age just had it together, and I'd fallen off the track. And I'd just sit there and I'd scroll for hours on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook is the worst for this. And I would just see these marriage announcements, new house announcements, baby announcements, and I just felt miserable, which sucks because I am happy for them, but I felt miserable. But I had great friends and I had my career to help fulfill that need to feel successful on my timeline I created. I was going for my master's, I was working full time, and then it hit me. I don't know exactly when, but it hit me. I was going for my master's for what? For what? I told myself that I had to. I had to be the first woman in my family to get a master's degree. And then I realized it was another box. That was the line I'd pressed into the paper so hard I couldn't see around it. And one of the realest moments of my life, this was my changing point. My now partner, at the beginning of our relationship, made me feel safe enough to say I didn't want the career I was working so hard towards. I wasn't happy. I cried almost every day, but I pushed through it because I thought I was doing good to the world. I thought I was doing good to people. But mainly it's because I thought I was doing what was right and what was expected of me. But over time, he repeatedly encouraged me to actually follow what I wanted. And this was the scary part. I went to my parents and I told them I was taking a break. 1 year in on my master's, I'm taking a break, I'm not going back. And I braced for it. I had the whole disappointment speech ready up in my head, but all they said was this: okay, you can always go back anytime. No hesitation, not a single pause. And that's when it hit me. I had spent years terrified of letting them down, letting everyone down against a standard that nobody was even holding for me. The career, the degree, the apartment, the money, the relationship, they didn't care. They never did. As long as I was trying to be a kind person, they were proud of me. Not for what I accomplished, but because of the person that I was becoming. I had built this entire courtroom in my head, and I walked in ready to be sentenced. And there was no judge. There was never a judge. The only one keeping score the whole time was me. So I did what my brain always does. I went looking for a word, a phrase, a study, anything that could name the thing that I was feeling. Because even chasing my dreams, I still had this weight of shame just sitting on my shoulders. And honestly, there's nothing like finding language for a feeling you couldn't put into words yourself. It's proof that somebody, somewhere, understood you without you even having to say a single word. And what I found was a term, the social clock. It's the culturally set by when on all checkpoints. When you're supposed to start the career, when you're supposed to get married, when you're supposed to have the kids, buy the house, retire, this timer running in the background of your entire life. And when I really sat with that idea, here's what I realized. I was just a person on a confusing planet with no rule book, and that is terrifying. So I did what most of us do. I looked around at what everyone else was doing when they did it, and I copied it. Not because I wanted any of it, because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be respected. And most importantly, I just wanted to feel safe. Because here's the part nobody says out loud: life moves so fast, and none of us actually know when that last day is. And a clock, this list of milestones, a by when, makes that unbearable thing feel manageable. Like if I just checked the boxes in the right order on time, then it counted. My life counted. It wasn't all for nothing. So, that clock isn't stupid. To a point, it makes sense. There are things that I want to do still that are the typical norm. But what that clock is, it's a to do list based on fear. It's the most human thing in the world, trying to make a short, uncertain life feel like it has a passing grade. But here's where it turns on you. That same clock that's supposed to comfort you, it starts screaming at you, ticking louder and louder as the days go by, telling you you're late, telling you to get it all done right now or it doesn't count. Your life doesn't count. And that's the lie. Because the clock was never measuring your life, it was just measuring your fear. And to make this whole thing even crazier, and the part that broke my brain, we're not even competing with real people. The person that you're measuring yourself against, she doesn't exist. Not in the way you think she does, at least. Think about what you actually see: little bits, pieces, the highlight. You never see the whole reel. And sure, some of these people really do have a thing you want, or they have a lot of things that you want. That's real. But watch what your brain does with it. You take this one's career and you stitch on that one's relationship, and you add a third person's home and a fourth person's body and a fifth one's family that looks so easy and warm online. And you just sew it all together to make one person. It has the body and the house, the love, the degree, the ease, and you are behind it and you're losing to it. But this image is simply like a Frankenstein. You built her. You took the best checked box off of 5 different people and convinced yourself one person was holding all of them at once. Because surely if she's got one, she's got the rest too, right? No. Just like you, every single one of these people is lying awake feeling behind on their own list, no matter how far ahead you think they are. The girl with the perfect relationship, she wants the career. The girl with the career, she wants the family. Nobody has all of the boxes. Nobody. The complete woman you're losing to was assembled in your own head. And here's what happens when you take her apart. You start to see how human everyone actually is, how nobody is holding the full set. And then something even quieter happens. You look down at what's already in front of you, the life that you actually have, and you realize you've been so busy losing to a ghost that you forgot to be grateful for what's real. You made up the rules. You've been breaking yourself trying to follow them, and you're losing to a person made up in your mind who doesn't even exist. But I think the even crazier part is me being able to explain all of this, but still struggle with it. I just cried to my boyfriend the day before recording this about how I don't think I'm doing enough and that I'm not accomplishing enough. I fought really hard to eliminate this thinking from my mind, but with my injury and my inability to move my body athletically the way I have my entire life, and the inability to be a personal trainer for my clients has set me back quite far. I've lost a lot of my muscle, I've gained some fat, and aside from the vanity reasons, it's hard to feel like I've completed enough in a day. But I remind myself, as he does too, that even though I'm not doing what I'd hope, and I'm not doing as much as I know I could if I wasn't hurt, I still do enough. And I am not measured by the tasks I can check off in a day, a week, a month, a year. I'm measured by the person that I choose to be, how I treat myself, how I treat other people. And that's the only way that I want to audit myself from here on out. So I'm here to remind you, you're not behind, I'm not behind, because being behind implies that there is a front, but there is no front. You're on time simply because on time is whatever you choose it to be. It's different from this person to me, different to you. At the end of the day, we're all doing our best here to mask this feeling of uncomfortableness that comes with life's uncertainty. We're all trying to press the lines into the paper too hard, wishing it to be perfect. But the true joy, the true happiness, the true fulfillment in life doesn't come from the line being pressed in hard on the first try. It comes from building soft lines, building soft grids, correct and incorrectly over time, to create this beautiful masterpiece of depth with highlights and shadows and imperfections, a portrait that truly is you. So this year, I'm not auditing myself. I'm not going to shame myself. I'm not going to compare. I'm just simply going to be proud of the person I am, knowing that I am not perfect, knowing that I will never be perfect, but also knowing I will continue to grow always. And I'm going to enjoy this day, not because I earned it, but because I simply can. And I'm gonna eat a big fat piece of cookie cake, call all the people I love, answer 1,000 text messages and Facebook messages, open my gifts, and truly enjoy the moment for what it is, the day I was born. And unless we're birthday twins, this is just another Wednesday closer to your birthday, and with a podcast, with a message, and yes, guys, even on my birthday episode, there is homework. Because I can yap for 30, 40 minutes, but it won't ever sink in until you apply it to your life. So here is your homework for the week. I want you to write down this prompt. By now, I should have blank. And then I want you to make a list and I want you to fill in the blank. Write everything down, the good and the bad. And then after you're done, next to each one, write where that deadline came from. Where did you see it? A movie, an ex, a friend, a random person you saw on Instagram? You'll notice how many of these trace back to nobody. But then I want you to circle the ones that you actually choose for yourself and cross out the ones that you inherited over time and you never agreed to. And what's left, that is your real timeline. And that's it. That's the homework for this week. Even if it's not your birthday, I declare your extra credit to be having a sweet treat today. Not because you deserved it, but simply because you are alive. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys have the most wonderful day. Happy early birthday to you. Happy late birthday if we've already passed it in the year. And I'll see you guys next time.